This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.
Welcome to What's News Dunedin, brought to you by Hazur Kebab, the radio show that spawned from the 22,000 plus strong local Otipoti Dunedin What's News Dunedin Facebook group. The group that's been put in the social back in the social media since 2020 with respectful adult debate and a sense of humour. I'm your host, Richard Knights. On today's show, we'll be talking to our wonderful guest, Doug Hall, new Dunedin City Councillor, who'll be telling us a bit more about themselves and what they do, as well as helping us look back at the posts that have generated the most interactions over the past 7 days on the What's News Dunedin Facebook group. Now, those posts this week are former Mayor Aaron Hawkins announcing his intention to stand in the upcoming by-election, Councillor Ong's seemingly permanent place on the front page of the ODT for what appear to be many of the wrong reasons, and our students slowly coming back to Otipoti, which means our media are running their annual criticism of our young people. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thank you, mate. Absolutely. Now, before we get started with all that serious stuff, we have a Punday Monday in the group where we get our best dad jokes to come, and then we see if they make the transition from Facebook to the radio, and we'll see whether you find it funny. There's no requirement to. You don't get kicked off the show if you don't find it funny. But we see where we get to. Now, the pun of the week this week was, if you jumped off a bridge in Paris, you'd be insane. And I'm telling the listeners that Doug is giggling to himself at this one. So everyone needs to know that the river that runs through the middle of Paris is the Seine. Otherwise, this joke does not make any sense whatsoever. So I thought that was quite a good one. I do love a bit of wordplay. That's my thing. So now, and again, before we get to the serious stuff, we do our 3 pop questions. So my 3 pop questions are for all my guests, and they basically allow me to get under the skin of everyone that turns up here and understand them inside and out, basically. There's no science involved here. It's just something I made up, right? So the first question for you, though, when you have a cream tea and you have a cream tea, you have a scone, you have jam, you have cream, what goes on first, the jam or the cream?
Obviously the jam, because of the density of the 2 items.
Science supports us, Doug, and you'd be surprised. There are a few strange people out there that try to do it the other way. And there's a whole county in England called Devon that do it the wrong way, where they put the cream on first and then they dollop jam on the top, which just seems, it just messes with my sensibilities, to be completely fair.
Do I get to do a dad joke?
You can do, if you've got a dad joke, you can bring your dad. You bring a dad joke. Let's just throw the handbook out the window and just do whatever we like today.
Why don't skeletons fight each other?
I've got no idea why don't skeletons fight each other.
They don't have the guts.
Like it. See you need to bring some of those for the Punday Monday post. Keep an eye out for it next week, mate, and then drop some of these, and you might find your puns being put out onto the airwaves on a Friday, because Max Reed he kind of holds the crown for being the most sort of punned person on this show. This week was Andrew Perkins, I have to say, so it wasn't Max. It was beaten by, but Max has got quite consistently. So anything like that that's gonna give Max a run for his money, I think is a good thing.
That sounds puntastic.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, second question. So that question was the only question you can get wrong on my show, right? So, and you got that right. So we're cooking with gas, right? Second question is, who is your favourite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
Raphael.
It's a good answer. No wrong answers with the turtles. All Renaissance painters, all fantastic in their own right. All cowbunga dudes. So, yeah, absolutely. Raphael, there you go. Now, the third question is a thinker, right? So you might have to give this a little bit of thought. Would you rather never age physically or never age mentally?
Obviously, physically.
You think? Never age physically?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I talk to a lot of people, and I think once you get past about 30, you don't really age mentally much.
I'm not sure I aged mentally past about 13.
Yeah.
And my wife certainly doesn't think so.
Yeah. Some of us maybe 12.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I made it into my early teens mentally, and then I kind of stopped. So I think I'd go with you, because I've stopped aging mentally. So if I could stop aging physically, literally, I've got to that age where every time I know I'm going to sneeze, I have to I have to plan that because I might throw my back out, because I've had back problems in the past, and I'm literally like, my wife wonders why I'm suddenly bracing myself. I've got a sneeze coming because if I jerk too sudden, I'm frightened. I'm putting myself in hospital.
Yeah, I work with a lot of older people, and they complain a lot about not being able to physically do stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It terrifies me a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's going to be like Star Trek and we'll just take a pill in the future and we'll all be all right.
It would be nice. I wish they'd hurry up and get onto that, to be completely fair, because I'm running out of time. You're right. You're a young man still, but I'm going to start to struggle at some point. So, but yeah, no, I think I'd be the same. I think physically, especially if you can choose where that stops, because obviously if you physically stop getting older at sort of 57, that would be kind of pointless. You need to kind of physically stop at about, I don't know, 22, 23, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of smart people in the world trying to work that out. I think aging is a feature, not a dysfunction, unfortunately. So it's going to be very difficult to reverse it.
I definitely.
There's about 7 markers.
You sound like you know. You sound like you know a lot about it.
I may have looked up a thing or two.
All I know is I'm getting old, and there's stuff all I can do about it. So I'm embracing my old age as best I possibly can. Now, want to talk about the 3 topics of the week. As with all of this, only answer the questions you feel comfortable answering. But former Mayor Hawkins has announced his intention to stand in the coming by-election. So we've obviously had a very sad situation with the passing of Councillor Jules Radich in January, which has obviously forced a by-election under the Local Government Act and all those kind of bits and pieces. There's going to be a by-election, and there's a few people that have thrown their hat into the ring early on in the piece, myself included, all cards on the table. But this week we've had former Mayor Aaron Hawkins has actually thrown his hat into the ring. And it's been greeted actually in the way that I kind of expected it would. There's a whole load of people that have kind of gone, hey, yay, fantastic, Aaron Hawkins. But there's also equally there's a whole load of people that have kind of gone not quite as excited as that. He does seem to have quite a Marmite type impact on people.
Before I start saying my opinion, I probably should just say that today reflects my personal opinions and does not represent the views of the council or the DCC a whole.
Absolutely perfect, yes.
But my personal feeling on it is we really need someone who can hit the ground running because we've had all our training. We've had a huge amount of training, which has been fantastic. And I think the ability to put someone in there that can hit the ground running, knows the topics well, is probably quite a thought in going about who we're picking for this next by-election. I was a little bit worried that we weren't having a good spectrum of people putting their name forward. I think we're almost at a point where we've got a good selection now. So all we have to do is go vote. And it's going to be so important that everyone votes.
Yes, that's the trouble with by-elections right there is turnout, right?
Yep.
We don't have great turnout full stop for local local elections.
45%, and we're down a little bit
on the time before. So we had a bit of we had a massive rush at the end, but there was a lot of work done by the council.
Yes.
And to
volunteer
get that
work was amazing.
It was stunning, the effort that went into trying to get people out there to vote in that last few days, because we were tracking far behind. I was keeping an eye on it every single day, obviously being part of the process, the same as your good self. But by-elections are historically lower again, right? And it's really important it's really weird because for history it sort of tells you that the people that tend to vote tend to be more right-leaning than left-leaning, right? So it tends to be older people, it tends to be more Pakeha people. That just tends to be the nature of it. If you want fair representation, it's really important that you get you get a fair spectrum of people actually voting as well, because otherwise you end up with a skewed result. So anyone that's out there listening that thinks, I won't bother, my vote's not important, or I won't bother voting this time because it's just a by-election, or my candidate that I wanted has already got in, for example.
This is going to go down to the line.
This
is so important.
Absolutely. They really do need to get out there and make their voice heard, because that way we end up with a council that's representative. And that's the important part of it. If you skew your representation, then you also skew the results you get from that representation, because just by the nature of it. So it always surprised me with the last council, particularly the last triennium, not the one that's just started, that we were ever so right-leaning, when Dunedin as a city is actually more left-leaning. So to be fair, you'd think if you were getting a representative council...
Yeah. Just to push back a little bit, it was a bit scattershot.
Yeah, you think the one before? You think? I mean, again, but that's okay. But it's so again, we've kind of got back to a sort of almost a representative kind of view on the council. If you're kind of analysing it to the nth degree,
and we need all views at the table.
Absolutely, that's so important.
That.
Yes, God, yeah. You don't want a fully left council, or you don't want a fully right council.
No,
that's
nice balance. You want one or two people that can cross the line.
Exactly, based on the subject matter,
common sense,
and happy to to listen to the data and evidence and kind of go, actually today I'm over here. Tomorrow, based on other evidence and facts, I'm sitting over here. So I think it's a good thing that Aaron has thrown his hat in the ring.
Yes. The more, the merrier.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got there's a few people. You've had obviously myself. You've had Link Aronson. You've had Aaron. Conrad Stedman has announced. Joe Gaylor has announced. I think Bill Ackland has announced. I'm not sure if I've missed anyone that I can think of the top of my head.
Still quite early,
but it's early days.
I'm expecting a few more people.
That's the point I was just about to make. There's still another sort of like almost 2 weeks to March the 2nd. March the 2nd is the cut-off date. So if you're thinking out there that you want to be involved, now is absolute. Oh, Pamela Taylor has announced, and you have to. Now's the time to get your nominations in, because actually, again, if you've got something to bring to the party, then there's potentially a space for you.
Yes, we need people with a voice.
Absolutely, at the table.
Hitting the ground running is going to be super important.
There are a few ex-councillors there. I wouldn't necessarily say as someone who hasn't been on council before that you necessarily need that, but I also believe that I would hit the ground running. So to be completely fair, because of the interest I've spent looking at council and understanding
you're well
council.
Informed.
I try to be, my wife would probably say otherwise, but I try to be. But again, I agree, because there are, whilst anyone that's listening, if they are thinking about it, there will be full induction. That has been specified by Sandy Graham, the CEO, that even though that has happened for the new people, there will be a full induction process. No, you won't be left to your own devices.
We had a huge amount of training, and it was so helpful. I can't imagine in the past they haven't done that training.
Right.
I can't believe it.
Oh, right. This was fairly new, was it?
Yeah, governance training. We had a huge amount of governance training.
Well, that's
just
fantastic.
what our roles are in the council. And there's a few people that didn't turn up for that training, but that is the way it is. We get to choose whether we turn up for that training.
It's important. And so while we're talking about council, then we have had a very tumultuous start to their term by Councillor Ong. There's been a number of things that have happened in this last week, and he's hit the papers quite regularly, unfortunately, I feel. Not because councillors shouldn't be in the paper, but I think it's important to be in the media for the right reasons. And one of the things that's kind of struck me with Councillor Ong so far is that they have run to media and shared information with media as almost part of their modus operandi.
I definitely think people need to be really paying attention to what's being said in these code of conduct complaints, because we're starting to notice a pattern. And so
that's the point.
People need to pay attention,
absolutely,
close attention, because of the pattern. And
as a councillor, I don't expect you necessarily to sort of speak on a colleague, but one of the things we have had the code of conduct that Councillor Ong brought against Councillor Chambers, that has been thrown out this week without substance by an independent, totally independent. And again, I've seen some commentary from Councillor Ong to suggest that he doesn't believe that's independent, and I guess that's where we need to kind of again sort of maybe push back against our council and say, hey, you've got to abide by the process, right? You were asked not to talk about it on media, on social media, but you did. You've had a decision, but you're now objecting to that decision. And in the meantime, there's also been a code of conduct brought against Councillor Wrong for something that Sandy Graham has brought, and we don't know the details of that because they are sticking with the process, which is not discussing that in public and allowing Steph Dryberg again to do their job.
No comment on that.
Independently. Oh, absolutely. And that's the way it should be. But unfortunately, we've been treated to comment after comment after comment. It turns out that an independent investigator has decided there's nothing to speak about. I was hoping yesterday's council meeting would see an apology from Councillor Wrong to Councillor Chambers, because it must be hard. As a brand new councillor, and it's going to be hard for Councillor Wrong with this against him, but as a brand new councillor having a code of conduct complaint against you, that's uncharted territory for most people.
Yeah, it's mind bending. You've never met a more lovely person than John,
right?
In a way, it's also good and bad that he chose John, because he is above reproach in this matter.
Yeah.
So, and it's caused his family and him a huge amount of stress.
Yes. Unnecessary.
Unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. And I can't talk to the motives, but I would read that report.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping for Councillor Wrong it's smoothed out a little bit. Yesterday's meeting was extremely combative that I watched. I feel like perhaps he feels he's being pushed into a corner and he's just got to come out swinging, and that's not the way it should be. If you want to get anything achieved around the council table, you need 7 people to come with you. That's the way you look at it, right? You got to have 7 people come with you, otherwise you're just Councillor Vandervis.
Yes,
and we've already got Councillor Vandervis.
He's having a lot of trouble with timing. Timing on everything. Timing for bringing up motions, timing when to interject. But hopefully he'll improve.
Hopefully improve. That's the plan, because I don't think we want to see Councillor Wrong on the front news of the paper every single day for the next 3 years. I don't think Councillor Wrong wants to see that, because that's not beneficial for him or his mental health, for that matter. Moving on to topic number 3, which is our students are coming back. So our students, which in my mind provide a huge amount of vibrancy to this city. We are a university city. We've got one of the best universities in New Zealand, if not internationally. There's a huge amount of research that comes out of our beautiful city. There's a huge amount of wonderful students that come out of our city, and every year it feels like we get copy and paste stories in the ODT and other media about the poor behaviour of students. Now, my son's one of those students. My son is second year law, right? There was a generalisation on the page the other day that everyone that gets through their first year is an alcoholic. I object to that, genuinely object to that, because actually, my son's a far more considered drinker, interactor with, substances and stuff than I ever was at the same age. 40 years ago when I was at university, Jesus, that makes me feel old now. Not quite 40 years ago, 35 years ago. It's a
hugely complex topic. And at the end of the day, a lot of the issues are coming from not from the students, but from their friends who are there with them. Like the unfortunate tragedy where the young person fell off the building.
Yeah.
It wasn't a student, from my understanding.
No, it wasn't.
And that we see that repeat over and over again. Now, in my mind, I always link the students coming back with summer.
Yes.
Because when you start seeing the students, you normally start also seeing the sun. But I'm not sure what's going on.
No, I think wherever the students are coming from, they've chosen to leave the sun behind where what they're doing. But for me, it's very much copy and paste. Right? There's 20,000 something students at the university. The vast majority of those students are kind, considerate, well behaved, studious. And some of them living on this, living on very low incomes and making do and struggling. But if you read the papers, you would genuinely think that they are like the English hooligans in Benidorm or by Ibiza on their summer holidays. Literally, like no care, no worry for anything. They're just going out and getting drunk and falling over and doing bad things. But I know that's not the case because I've genuinely got someone of that age in the university doing a fantastic job, and that's the vast majority.
Yes. And as I said, it's a complex topic with lots of nuance. Some argue that us removing the safe locations for drinking has pushed a lot of it for preloading at home and having parties at home because there's no set, safe, monitored locations for these children to go to. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word children. Young adults.
Young adults, yeah.
And we had a great meeting last week about a strategy, coming up with a strategy to try and reduce harm because there's a lot of harm being done with alcohol. It's actually fascinating how much damage it's doing to our society, but it's not something you're ever going to get rid of. You need to control it.
I agree. I'd make the point though that when I was at university, and I went to university between 1990 and 1993, so you can pick how old I am from that alone, is that the university that I went to had a student union bar, and that was it. Everything else was city drinking. We used to preload, right? We used to sit at home and drink before we went out to save ourselves some money. That hasn't changed in 30 years. And the issues are still the same. What I have seen change though is that our young people's attitude. Our young people are drinking less than my generation did, which I think is a good thing. So we are seeing some of that alcohol is bad for you teachings being observed. A
little bit of it is culture, and I think we got to the point where the current culture's looked at our parents and gone, we don't want that for ourselves.
No, my son certainly, when there's the stories I tell him, he certainly looks at it and goes, I don't want to do that, Dad. And that's totally cool, which is why I share some of the stuff that with him. I wasn't, I wasn't an awful child, I wasn't an awful teenager, I wasn't an awful young adult, but I wasn't sort of prim-prob, I didn't do Bible class and just spend my time in the library either, But one of the things that I've noticed is coming from the UK, which is a heavy binge drinking culture, to here, which is also a kind of heavy binge drinking culture, is that the UK feels is probably a decade or two ahead of New Zealand when it comes to that whole, even to the drink driving. Like most people in New Zealand seem to, drink driving is just kind of like, well, if I can get away with it, I'll, it's one of those ones, and a lot of people will have a drink driving conviction. And people, and we're still in that kind of trying to teach that on the TV, and we did that in the UK like maybe 20 years ago, and it seemed to hit home. I'm not saying drink driving has gone. It definitely hasn't gone.
It's
from the
definitely
UK.
A culture change. We need to change the culture around drinking.
Yes,
we need to also understand mental illness plays a huge part.
And addiction,
and the stresses of everyday life.
And that has got harder. I genuinely believe life has got tougher for not just our young people.
We have a lot more inputs.
Yeah.
There's a lot larger volume in society, and we're not always good at blocking out the stuff that we don't need to pay attention to.
Yes.
I think as a society, we really need to have a hard look. And it's quite hidden. You've had a hard day at work, you have a glass of wine. A year later, you decide, I might need 2 glasses of wine to calm down after work.
Yeah.
And then it's a bottle. And then it creeps up on people.
Absolutely. And that again is just part of, sometimes that becomes part of like, we weren't able to offload that in any other way when we arrived home, potentially, because of all the stresses and the strains and everything else that goes on in our life. So we it's almost like you seek to self-medicate, and just and deal with it that way. I'm an addict. I know I'm an addict, right? So I'm either on or off, right? I've been like this all my life, right? When I was a smoker, 80 a day, right? I know, crazy, right? And my first job was selling cigarettes, right? And I got them for free. Mad. I've been off the backy for 20 plus years, but
Congratulations.
And I went cold turkey as well. So only because I had to prove to myself that I could. I'd been telling myself for years that if I just wanted to stop, I could.
My addiction is definitely food.
Yeah, well, I've got a very similar addiction. So but I'm on or off, right? So I fully understand addiction, right? So it's not an easy thing to get out of habitual behaviour, all right? So we need assistance and help. But a culture change is something that we absolutely probably need.
Yes.
But I just like to make the point. The point I want to make is I think our young people are under even greater stress than perhaps when I was a young person, dealing with it pretty damn well, and actually probably in a better way than my generation ever did. So I think we owe them some kudos and some acceptance and some understanding that we were young too. You know, that's the bit that I kind of sort of I find struggling, is that these people seem to have forgotten what they were like when they were kids, and I can't imagine they were all perfect angels.
Yes.
Because none of us ever were. You know, and that's not a criticism of those people. It's just.
And some of the things I was very surprised at in the meeting was there is 900 alcohol-attributed deaths annually.
Wow.
900. And something else I didn't think about was alcohol's actually a carcinogen. So there's roughly 1,250 people diagnosed a year due to alcohol-related abuse. It's absolutely astonishing.
And that's a number that we can actually you can do something about, isn't it? That is something that we can actually have a direct effect upon if we change the mindset. You know, change the way we think about stuff.
Yes, absolutely. But it's going to take a lot of work.
Absolutely, from everyone, not just not just us.
There isn't one lever. We're going to have to pull a lot of levers, and we're just not really sure what they are.
We'll get there. There's some smart people out there. That's the one thing that does give me encouragement. Actually, is we have a youth that are more willing to be, less involved with alcohol. That's the starting point.
And another is the burden on ED. 1,400 alcohol-related presents annually. Peak is Saturday and Sunday night. If you accidentally break something, don't go to the ED on a Saturday and Sunday.
No, you just dealing with there's drunk people, but they're not all students. That I've been in ED when the drunk person is substantially older than myself. And it affects all ages, right? So let's not make it to be accuse our students of doing stuff that actually it's across the board when it comes to alcohol. Now, I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your journey to council and the stuff that you've been involved in very recently. But before we do that, I'm just going to get a quick word from our wonderful sponsor.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
Have you been to Hazur Kebab?
Yes, I believe so.
It's the one up top, just opposite George Street Normal School. Fantastic. Wonderful people, wonderful humans that work in there as well. They seem to enjoy, they seem to enjoy being there, which you can't often say in food establishments. Often you get to a food establishment and they're just mad, crazy running around. You can kind of tell that they're just looking forward to, down tools go home. But actually when you're in Hazur, they just kind of feel like they're just loving it, the vibe's good, the food's good, the feeling's good. I love spending time there. So now, Doug Hall Jr.
Yes,
we make the point here. Obviously, Doug Hall Senior.
Yes.
Was also a Dunedin City Councillor.
Yes.
Have you done a poll to see how many people that voted for you thought they were voting for your dad?
No.
Do you think there'll be some?
It certainly helped.
Absolutely. I think there would be some. Like they kind of go, that's not the Doug Hall I was voting for.
Yes,
because some people don't pay much attention.
I think in 3 years from now we'll know.
Well, no.
Who
thought they were getting your dad? Who thought they were getting you? Now, give us the 5 minutes cliff notes. Give us, obviously, a lot of people that were listening would very much know your dad because of his time that's spent on council, and thank him for his service for that, because it's not a task that anyone takes on lightly, and it's a hard battle. You can see it every day when you say it, look at a council meeting. But give us a little bit about you, how you got to be where you are, what you do, what's your normal day.
Yes, I
but
didn't.
also before you get, also what drove you to following in Dad's footsteps, if that's kind of what you did, rather than maybe you didn't, maybe it's your path entirely and it's nothing to do with your dad. But I'd be interested to hear.
I've spent my entire life in IT. I did not follow the family business. While I'm really good at destroying and buildings, demoing buildings, I didn't follow that path. I was much keener on computers. And, I thought it was a bit of a time for a change. I love computers, but 25 years of it, I'm looking for other interests. And this whole journey has been absolutely amazing, and I've learnt so much. They are truly cramming the knowledge into my tiny little head. It's absolutely amazing. I didn't know that much could fit in there, to be honest.
Have you had to offload, like garbage in, garbage out? Have you to get rid of some garbage to put some more? When
I first started, I had a wee bit of problem not realising that I don't have to take everything in.
Right.
Like there are 15 of us, 14 councillors, and we all work together for the common good, but we all have different specialties. So I trust other councillors on certain topics, and I have my opinion on my topics.
Right.
And I think that's the way it's got to work, because everyone doesn't know everything.
Yeah. And that's that actually probably lends itself to the new structure that has come in this time round with regards to portfolios.
Yes.
As opposed to committees, which and there was not obviously because everyone's listening, there was a vote yesterday to actually bring back a committee that was actually very, very important, that kind of got washed out in the process, not intentionally, but just in the change of structure. Suddenly there's a realisation afterwards that there's actually this grant subcommittee that does a hell of a lot of important work. The
way I voted, because I wasn't sure, but the way I looked at it is we need feedback. There needs to be a little feedback loop there from the community back, because it is such an important thing, grants, for the community. It does a lot of good.
Yes.
But I think it went right. Yeah.
Yes, I did. I paid attention yesterday, not because it was the grants thing, but just because I try and keep tabs on it, because I like to come on here and talk about stuff that
I'd like to see that committee refreshed.
Yes.
A whole new group of people, you know.
I think that's important too, but it actually, around the table, there was an acknowledgement that there is, apart from a couple of sort of stray words from a couple of stray people, there was the acknowledgement of the good that brings, because community dollars spent give back a lot more. They bring back a lot more than the spend itself, because a lot of the community stuff is done on volunteer.
Yes.
Mahi. Yeah. And volunteer people who are literally putting back stuff in because they love the thing that they're doing. So,
this sort of leads into the rate capping and our budget constraints that are coming up.
Yeah.
I don't want to rant about it, but the problem with rate capping is that they want to limit us to 2%. And I don't think anyone's told them up in Wellington that inflation's 3.1.
Yeah, I know.
Electricity's 12.2. Food is 8.2. Like,
construction's higher again, isn't it? I know it's much higher than 3.1.
Yes,
and when you're talking infrastructure projects,
you can't cap reality. Costs don't read legislation. It's absolute insanity.
Yeah. So you've got the choice. You either get constrained and then you can't deliver, or you put an unrealistic expectation on the people that you're asking to deliver, because they're all external bodies, and then you end up squeezing them, getting shoddy work. How you did that would be impossible.
How councils in the past have done it is by not doing maintenance.
Not doing work.
Into this problem to begin with.
Yeah.
You don't increase rates, you pass the bill on to the next generation. And when I ran, I was like, I am going to make decisions that in 50 years, was it a good decision?
Yeah, and look back and people go, yes. That's what you're hoping for, right? The people are looking back and going, yes, that was the right decision. And it's for me again following the subject quite strongly, is that we have a situation where we've had decades of can kicking, right, by councils up and down the Motu. Like, not even just Dunedin City Council has actually been better recently than many councils. You look at the trouble that's going on in Wellington, right? So we're in a far better position perhaps than a lot of councils, right? But the situation has been, even Dunedin has kicked the can so that they can have low rate increases over years and years and years, and then the people could look at the people they voted in and gone, hey, they've done a wonderful job. They've not raised our rates this year, right? They have kicked the can down the road, right? So now we start to address some of that, and we need, and then you had the whole Three Waters debacle from the previous government to this government, which is again which has actually highlighted the fact that we need to stop kicking the can down the road. Right, and then when they've done all that, then they've decided that they should want to put a rates cap. Like, the rates cap, if we'd have been doing all the maintenance, all the work, all the stuff we were supposed to be doing, having decent and reasonable rates increases in history, so that we are in a position where we're up to game, then I can understand a rates cap, right? Then I can understand you kind of going, hey, look, we've been really, really good. We've got everything where we need it to be. Now we can cap rates. But this is pass backwards.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to roll back a wee bit. The people at the DCC are doing an amazing job. The people at Three Waters, honestly, we went and had a look at some of these facilities, and they're running them on oily rags. They've done such a tremendous job. Every time I flush the toilet, it's a miracle.
Your poos disappear.
They just disappear.
Fantastic.
We don't think about it.
No. You don't have to worry about them appearing in the street in the city centre, like Wellington has to worry about, or in the harbour, like Christchurch is just, and Wellington. I think both of them have had, discharges into their waterways. It is a miracle, right?
And it's been a real challenge. The government left a chaotic situation, and the Three Waters team stepped up and managed it. They've essentially held it together, keeping things moving. The level of capital investment required is significant. Yeah,
and that's what most of the 9-year plan and the long-term plan encompasses too. I've seen the graphs, right? Something like 85-90% of all the expenditure is that we've got planned for the next 9 years, 10 years, 9 years, because it was a 9-year plan this time round. Is Three Waters and roading infrastructure.
Yes,
right. And yet we still have our angry ratepayers that are screaming about the nice-to-haves. We still have our angry ratepayers that are complaining about the closing off of Queen's Drive as a trial, which costs a 0.00 something percent.
It's like 2%. Our slush is about 2%.
Yeah,
like we cannot cut.
No, you can't. You can't spread it out any further, right? And then you've got things like grants that we were talking about before. The grants are coming out of that amount as well.
Yes,
And then you've got a government suggesting that they put an arbitrary cap on, and it is arbitrary, right? And but not only is it
ludicrous,
but not only is it arbitrary, it's actually lower than the headline inflation rate right now, and that's the bit I don't understand.
Yeah.
Right?
We haven't been under 2% for decades.
No, exactly. And so CPI, the inflation, whatever you want to call it, has been tracking above that and significantly above that in the last, since COVID and the global inflation, smash that happened. But it makes me wonder about who is sitting in an office somewhere in Wellington decides that, because if someone says to me, "I've got this great idea, Rich," right? I've had this great idea. I'm going to do something that means that we will go backwards. We will spend less money than we did last year in real terms, because we're actually going to spend less money than what we spend this year plus inflation. But we're going to cap people, so we can't let them do that. I would have looked at that and kind of gone, it's a great plan, but there's a flaw in that plan, in the fact that the way you want to cap it is already lower than where nature itself is saying, we're science, we're data, we're evidence is taking
the people I feel sorry for are the policy writers, because they're beholden to politicians who have fever dreams. And, they get a napkin, write an idea, and they hand it to the policy people. And they have to do cartwheels and backflips to try and interpret the sentence into something that is workable.
Is that how it works in the DCC as well? It's like, are you guys that I don't necessarily mean it in a derogatory sense, but are you guys the fever dream people that are sitting around the table, and then you got the people in the background that...
We operate off reports. So we request a report, the report comes to the table, and then we make a decision off the report.
Yep.
So, yes and no.
Yes and no. And there's a basic premise there that you've read the report.
Yes.
Because I do get the feeling, especially after watching yesterday's council meeting, where there was a question asked by one councillor that was literally was answered in the first sentence of the motion itself.
Yes.
And it was asked repeatedly.
Yes.
That's a person that hasn't read the information that's been brought to them. Because otherwise you wouldn't ask the question.
Defences, there is a huge amount of documentation.
I get that.
Huge.
Yeah.
And in what we get isn't everything. There's a lot more behind that. And this is something what I was talking about, them jamming information into our head, is because there's so much institutional knowledge you need before you can even read the agenda correctly. Mm. So I've got some fantastic colleagues who I'm constantly annoying, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this talking about?
Yeah, you've been here longer than me. Explain this to me, But I guess that's normal. That's normal work environment, isn't it?
Yes. And I made a few mistakes yesterday, which I'll keep secret.
It's all on YouTube, mate. If anyone wants to see Doug Hall's mistakes and send right into the show, not that they will, Doug.
Yes, and it was mainly misinterpretation of some things. And of course, we voted, and then I found out afterwards. And then I looked back, and I was like, I probably wouldn't have voted any different. So I wasn't too worried about those. But it just goes to show the amount of knowledge you need. And we're not perfect.
No, of course not.
We're not perfect. So the way I'm working around it is really focusing on things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So having deep looks into those, and I'll have a quick look over things I'm less interested in, because there is a lot of things for just noting.
Yes. And I think, and again, it's like some people don't realise this, and again, because I spent time looking at it, people don't realise there does seem to be a very unrealistic expectation from a certain demographic of ratepayers that you are perfect, that you cannot make mistakes, that you cannot try things.
We make lots of mistakes.
But that's natural, right?
Yes.
Those people would as well, right? And if they were actually being fair and they weren't quite as riled up and angry as they are when they're speaking and when they're typing on their keyboards, then they would actually be a lot more understanding,
As an institute, we should experiment. Like, you cannot be stagnant.
Of course not.
Like, you have to trial new things. And yes, some of them don't work. And we'll roll back the trial. The Queen's is a perfect example. It is just a trial.
Yeah.
Once it's done, we'll look at the real data, not the sensationalized version.
Yes.
And go, was this a good idea?
I saw absolutely, and that's what it's about. It's about feedback. And I saw some feedback that was on Dunedin News and Dunedin News Uncut, which aren't always the most. Sometimes they are. Not always the most reasoned places to provide feedback, because you can get jumped on quite strong there around accessibility and things like that. And I looked at it and kind of went, like, whilst it's great feedback, it hasn't been designed to be accessible now because of the fact it's the trial, right?
Yes.
That, if you were criticising the accessibility of it once it was a full-blown thing, then I totally get, actually, it should be accessible, there should be no exclusion, it should be totally inclusive. If you're wheelchair bound or otherwise disabled, then you should be able to enjoy that just as much as anyone else, right? But you bring in your criticism a little bit before you've had before. I mean, it is, those pieces of furniture, that a disabled person could absolutely not get on or be anywhere near, because they're not suitable. would not be the furniture. I mean, you just have to look at like George Street and even the seesaws, which we have access to some of that play equipment, right? If that was the trial, there'd be like a wooden seesaw there. You kind of get the idea, right?
Yes.
We're going to it wouldn't be that one that has the ability to put a wheelchair on it. So it's one of those things. It's cart before horse type conversations. Yes. But it is, you've got to do stuff to try it, because if you don't try it, you don't know if it's going to work or it doesn't work.
No. And to bring it back to the staff again, like the people at the DCC are incredible. It is genuinely remarkable to see the work they do. I don't think the average person understands.
No.
I think they just think they go there to collect a paycheck. But the calibre of the work I'm seeing is breathtaking. For example, the events team organised by Tangi event at the Gardens and the George Street Market, it was outstanding.
And that's logistically, both of those are huge. I want to come back to that in a sec, but before we do, just going to get another quick, wonderful word from our super duper sponsor.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
Now, I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. Like, I genuinely believe there is a portion of our public that believe that councillors and DCC staff get up in the morning, look themselves in the mirror, squeeze their, lick their eyebrows back, and go, right, today I'm going to do something that wastes money and makes this city rubbish, right? And then they go to work, right? Genuinely, I believe that some people think that, because I know a lot of DC staff, right? And they're fantastic human beings that are talented, intelligent, like creative, and they are doing things that I couldn't dream of doing in a million years. And not one of them is going to work. You don't go to work for the DCC to just take the paycheck, because it's not worth the bloody hassle that you get, and the berating and the nastiness and the abuse and all that other kind of like noise that you get if you weren't doing it for the because you actually want to make a difference to the city that you actually. And we have got some extremely talented people delivering outcomes, like you say, on the smell of an oily rag, right? And within the restrictive, and it's not like a business where you can kind of go and do, if I want to do something today in my business, I can do something. There is legislative rules, there are consent rules, there's building act, there's so much law around what a city can and can't do, that the restrictions are huge. And the fact that they navigate that on a daily basis, and they still deliver things like the Waitangi Day and the George Street Market and the George Street renewal and all the
toilet
things,
flushes,
and every toilet flush that we get, and every time we turn on a tap and then water comes out,
and it's clean.
Exactly, and it's consistently clean, right? I mean, I can again, like, even all the criticisms of Aurora and utilities and all those kind of things, I could probably count on two hands in the 15 years that I've been here the amount of power cuts I've had in Brighton.
We've got some of the best power on the planet. People don't understand that in some countries you only have power for an hour of the day,
and you can go days without power. And again, it's just one of those things. It's a very we've become entitled and privileged, and sometimes we've got to cut through that noise and actually look at the fact that actually what we're delivering and what is being delivered to me. Right, I'm paying the same probably that I was paying in the UK for my rates, right, as I pay in New Zealand, right, dollar for dollar, even converting on the pound to the dollar, right. I get far more for my dollar in this country than I did in the country that I left, right. Yes. I can tell you that I get more for my. I've got a better electrical service. I've got, I've probably had more water outages in the UK than I had
because of the amazing people.
Exactly, and the fact that they're putting that effort in and they're doing that mahi in a way that actually, everyone complains about traffic cones, but the actual amount of time I've sat looking at traffic cones in the UK compared to here, and I know it's a different country, and people say, well, you're in New Zealand now, there's an expectation, but you're talking about the same stuff. Right, I went back to the UK like a couple of years ago, and some of the roads that I had driven on 15 years previously had not been literally it was 15 years and they hadn't been, like, these are major motorways in the UK. There's the M11 in the UK, which runs from East London up to bloody Cambridge, has not had a bloody piece of seal on it in 15 years since I've been away, and it is like driving across a bloody farm track, and that's a major thoroughfare that takes more cars probably than in a day than we see in a year in Dunedin.
Yes, yeah.
We've got good people doing good things. They deserve to be applauded for it.
And 100% agree. 100% agree. Well, we've got a bit of a problem where everyone always wants tax cuts, but they don't understand that tax cuts what pays for that road to be sealed.
Yeah, exactly.
And as a society, we're a bit of me, when we all need to work together.
There needs to be a bit more.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 5 minutes left. I told you we'd run out of time because it flies by when you're having fun.
Sure,
you just didn't know you were having fun.
The one thing I'd like to talk about is Sophie Barker. It's incredible the job she's been doing. People don't see the amount of effort that goes into being a mayor. She's turning up to everything. She's really got a finger on the pulse.
Yep.
She's engaging everyone. I've been absolutely shocked. It really shows the voters, the public, are not fools. When it really matters, they make the right choices.
Absolutely, and it's one of those jobs that, like, you could do the minimum, or you can put your heart and soul into it,
Yes.
and you can tell the difference. I genuinely believe you can tell the difference.
100%. The thought of a first-term person coming in and doing that job without the institutional knowledge, without the vision, it just...
No, it doesn't bear thinking about. I know Andrew Sims wanted to stand for mayor, and I think he ultimately might become mayor at some point in the future. But,
yes,
but having been a councillor, I think if he does become mayor, he'll be a far better mayor than he would have been if he'd just got mayor today. Right?
100%.
And that's whilst me and him disagree on a number of things in the way we go about stuff. That's something I believe of everyone. I think if I became mayor tomorrow, I'd be far worse at being a mayor than if I'd had a training as a councillor prior to that. Not that I'm standing for mayor. Cause
I certainly believe Dunedin is going in the right direction.
It feels like
Sophie.
It feels like it.
I think we need a bit more time, but I think in 3 years Dunedin might be a very different place.
I'd like to think so, and I'd like to think as well that we don't have another one-term mayor. I'd like to think that we don't. Well, we had Aaron, we had Jules, we've now got Sophie. Potentially could be the third in a row.
We need the calm.
We need some longevity and give people a time to achieve something. Because 3 years is actually not a long time. Well, our election cycles, in my mind, are too small. Where they need to be a bit sort of dragged out.
Don't get me wrong. Sophie's hit the ground sprinting.
Well,
so we've got a lot of stuff coming up,
and that's good. And that's good news. But I still think people need the benefit of, you look at what Dave Cull achieved, but he didn't achieve that in year 1. He didn't achieve that in year 2 or year 3. He achieved that in year 6, year 7, year 8, and year 9. And that's, again, you can't tell the electorate to just keep voting the same person in. That's not the way it works. That's not democracy.
We don't want turbulence.
Yeah, but turbulence does bring
business, growth. It all relies on a calm pond. We just cannot be changing everything up every 3 years. We need it to be calm. We need someone to get behind growth. We're really pushing all in the same direction.
What are your hopes for the next 3 years for you personally, as a councillor? What are you looking to?
The government stop throwing stuff at us.
That would be nice,
constantly.
Wouldn't it? I don't know if a change of government will do that or not. I'm hoping it might, but
I'm feeling a little bit like we're juggling grenades right now. There's so much going on, and our staff is doing a fantastic job with submissions. Submissions, our time frames are tight.
Yep.
It's all done on purpose.
But they can only do that for so long. If you keep getting smashed for a certain period of time, you're going to get, burnt out or worn out.
Well, I think they realise they have a time frame to push their agenda, and that's why they're trying to speed it all up, because I think the writing's on the wall.
I'd like to see a change of government. I'd definitely like to see a change, even if National stay in power. I'd like to see New Zealand first and acts like long sent to the back seats.
I'm not overly too worried about who's in charge. I'm more worried about good decisions.
Yes, and I'm
policy,
and I'm the
good
same.
decision making.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'd like to see that kind of stuff happening.
This fever dream stuff is just not good for anyone. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for us.
And the only ones that seem to think it's a good idea are the people that are saying it, and that tends to make you realise that it's probably not.
Yes.
Cool. That's it. We are going to run out of time. I told you that we would. It's been fantastic having you on here. I wish you all the very success for this triennium. It's an interesting by-election coming up, so we'll see who joins you at the table. It may, you never know. It might even be me. You might be that unlucky. But anyway, thank you, Doug Hall.
No problem.
And you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for listening.
No worries, mate. You sit there just while I just round the show out. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Richard Knights, and you've all been wonderful. Remember, if you're looking for robust, respectful adult debate about all things local and further afield, and a welcoming online community that doesn't take itself too seriously, come and find What's News Dunedin on Facebook and join our fun. On next week's show, we talk to Jackson Rosie, Oti playwright, actor and director, and founding director of JCR Productions. So we look forward to seeing you again next Friday at 12 on ORFM. And if you want to listen to the show again or simply share it with your friends, you can find the podcast at oar.org.nz or even on Spotify, YouTube, or your favourite podcast provider.
This podcast was produced by ORFM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.